Hello everybody, this is Felix and I'm here with a new type of video. One that originated from my desire to rewrite the entire RWBY series. That would have probably been a bit too much, so I'm going to do this instead. The main topic of this video, as the title indicates, is going to be the creation of a proper rivalry between Roman and RWBY.
Oh, hello, Red! Isn't it past your bedtime?
If it's a fight, I won't lose!
What's the point of doing that, you might ask? Well, when I was still trying to rewrite RWBY, the show, not the person, one of the first things I wanted to change was Ruby Rose. It never really felt like she was a proper main character, or had any meaningful arc. She was more of a side character in her own show. My main issue was that she felt to have no agency in the first couple of volumes. There are many ways I could have gone about fixing that, but I thought a good old rivalry with Roman would do the trick, giving her something to do and connecting her to the plot in a stronger way than canon. But why Roman of all bad guys? Well, he really was the only option. There was Cinder, who you might think would be the first choice as the main villain for the first 3 volumes, but that doesn't work. Mostly because Cinder needs to stay incognito until the end of volume 3, otherwise her plan wouldn't work. And because I'm going to try to keep things in line with canon, that means she was out. The same goes for Mercury and Emerald, her teammates, which only leaves Adam, Neo and of course Roman. Personally, I think Roman was the best out of the 3, because Adam is tied to a different character and Neo is Roman's less silent lackey. There are going to be some changes to RWBY and Roman, mainly their backgrounds, which I will go over in just a bit. I'm also going to give RWBY a proper character arc, as the show really dropped the ball on that, and for a proper rivalry to exist there needs to be a conflict beyond just good and bad. So the biggest change in the backstory for RWBY is that I've kept Summer around a little longer. In the canon she dies for RWBY is about 3 or 4, it's never made super clear. Now what's the point of those extra 4 years? I mainly wanted to strengthen the connection between Summer and RWBY, as I've always felt it was weak in the show itself. It is even stated that RWBY doesn't remember much of her mother in the show, which would make it tricky to use during a lot of the character arcs Ruby Rose goes through. Especially seeing as most of them are fairly heavily connected to Summer. In the canon show, Summer was portrayed as a great mother, at least I think so. I'm not sure if that's going to end up being the truth, but for now I'm going to assume it is. In my rewrite, Summer is still going to be a good mom, but she will be in the field most of the time, spending as much time as possible between missions with Yang and RWBY, doing a lot of fun activities, training them, and this is what RWBY remembers when Summer was there, not when she was gone. Just like RWBY in the show, Summer wanted to be a badass huntress that could save people, and she wasn't willing to give that up, even when she got a family. When Summer was home, she would tell RWBY sanitized versions of her missions and fairy tales where she or the hero would come around and save the day. This is going to become the main reason why RWBY wants to become a huntress, as she desires to become a hero just as in the stories. The important thing here is that RWBY wants to become a huntress before her mother dies. So RWBY ends up in the same place as in canon, where she wants to become a huntress, but she doesn't have a realistic view of what that means. For Roman's part, I'm going to shamelessly steal the backstory from a fanfic writer. His name is Cool Aaron, he writes good stuff, go check him out. So, Roman's backstory is that he used to be a huntsman that was sent with his team and others to Mount Glen as a rescue mission tasked with helping evacuate citizens from the grim invasion. The plan was to take a majority of the people through an underground tunnel that was connected to Phil. At some point, Phil's council ordered everybody to fall back as they were going to collapse the tunnel to prevent the Grim from invading Phil proper. Unfortunately, a majority of the evacuation wasn't completed, with means leaving thousands of people to die. Roman's team decided to stay as they were unwilling to abandon the people. Roman chose survival and left, but after what he witnessed he could no longer be a huntsman and chose the path of crime to make ends meet. Seeing his people killed and abandoning his team, I feel it's natural for Roman to become disenfranchised with hunters. He, however, in his time with them, built up a set of skills. These skills would allow him to make money far easier, and he could think of ways of doing it that were less of a risk to his life: crime. What's more, it serves as a perfect fuck you to the city he felt betrayed by. Volume 1 starts off the same as in canon, with the dust shop getting robbed. RWBY kicking the asses of some henchmen until Roman gets in the picture, and here we are going to change some stuff. In canon, Roman walks up, says a little quip, makes a distraction with his explodey cane and gets out of there. In my version, RWBY will comment on Roman when he walks out of dusk to dawn, saying something generically heroic like, "No bad guys are getting away." Honestly, I couldn't think of anything better. In response, Roman will just say in a dismissive tone that he doesn't have time to play hero with some would-be huntress, and they get into a quick fight. Roman is dominating the fight and RWBY is panicking as she didn't expect someone of his caliber to be robbing Dust Shop. As the fight draws to a close, let's say that Roman disarms RWBY. He says to her, "Quit the heroics, Red. Not everybody is going to be as nice as me and letting you get away with just a slap on the wrist." At that, he leaves and we sync up with Canon again, where RWBY follows, Goodwill shows up, and Cinder does her little firework display. So why am I changing the encounter? What's the point? Well, one of the main problems with RWBY, as I have said before, is that she really doesn't feel like a main character. And in the later volumes, when they try to give her more focus, she is either unlikable or boring. The main reason this happened is that personally, I think Rooster Teeth has no idea what they want to do with Ruby Rose. So I've decided to give her a character arc that would fit RWBY and hopefully be interesting to watch. Her character arc is going to be to figure out what it really means to be a huntress hero to her. Not the glorified hero in her head, or later on the hard-ass huntress that will do anything for the mission. This is where Roman comes in. He is going to be the first person to challenge RWBY's glorified view of what a huntress is. I'm basically making Roman the main rival of RWBY in the first 3 volumes. I do have a bit of a problem when it comes to volume 1. As anybody who has seen the volume knows, Roman doesn't show up all that much. Only once at the beginning and at the end. That's not enough for what I'm trying to do here. Roman's presence needs to be felt throughout the volume to properly build him up as RWBY's rival. I'm not going to have Roman randomly show up, as I'm trying to keep things relatively close to canon. What I'll do instead is add a couple of moments throughout the volume where RWBY is reminded of her encounter with the thief. The first time this happens is when RWBY gets into a fight with Weiss, and we're not going to change much. Weiss will unintentionally mirror Roman and tell RWBY that she needs to grow up, that she needs to take being a huntress more serious and stop playing superhero. RWBY will get angry at Weiss for this and shout at her or something. Honestly, I just want there to be a fistball reaction to the words. And after that we can sync everything back up with the show. Secondly, when the John arc happens, there's going to be a moment where RWBY sees Carden beating up John in a sparring match. Afterwards, Carden keeps shit talking him and RWBY steps in telling Carden to shut up and that he can't just belittle people like that. John and the rest of her friends will make her cool down, and that's that. We do this not to be the bully beating the hero, but to show that RWBY still harbors feelings for the way the strong treated the weak, or how Roman treated her. There is one more time Roman gets mentioned in volume 1, and it's basically the same as in canon. In episode 15, Team RWBY goes out to the city because Weiss wants to spy on other teams for the Vital Festival, and they find the Dust Shop having been robbed. As Weiss and Blake start arguing about if the White Fang were the ones to rob the place, RWBY interjects and says that it might have been that Torchwick guy. The only real change I would make is that she is a bit more serious when mentioning his name than in canon. It's a stark reminder of her failure to stop in, which has led to more robberies. Alright, now we can get to the Volume 1 final. I'm going to quickly summarize what happened in the last episode of Volume 1. Even though you should probably already know what happened if you watched this video. But hey, not everybody is forced to rewatch the first volume, wanting to make a stupid video instantly regretting it. Blake ran away after the fight with Weiss. She wanted to prove that the White Fang isn't working with Roman. Blake is proven wrong when she and Son find that exact thing happening at the dock. Blake does the whole hostage taking thing and the fighting starts. RWBY shows up, says hey, and then Penny goes kill a robot, and I guess Roman just kinda gets away. Something I noticed after rewatching the final is that RWBY doesn't do crap in it. This really shouldn't be the case when you are one of the main characters. The only one from Team RWBY that really is involved is Blake. And that all stops when Penny shows up. At that point it's just a showcase of what Penny can do. It's fine for Penny to have a spotlight, but at least have the 2 main characters that are there do something. Roman is still around until he just kinda walks away. Nobody seems to do anything about it. Have Blake and RWBY fight Roman as Penny does her thing. At least that way RWBY does something. So yeah, the change I'm going to make is that RWBY and Blake fight Roman during Penny's rampage. Let's say that RWBY sees Roman trying to get away. She fires a shot at Torchwick, stopping him in his tracks and says, "You're not getting away this time." Roman will snarkily reply, "If I remember right, Red, the last time we met things didn't exactly go your way. So how about making the reasonable decision and nobody has to get hurt?" At that, Roman looks at Blake, who is standing behind Ruby holding her side clearly in pain. "Well, nobody important." Ruby doesn't respond well to that and somewhat angrily half shouts, "This isn't the same as last time. Blake and I can work together to beat you." At that, all three ready their weapons and start to fight, but not before Roman in a low voice says to himself, "Hard way it is." While the fight is by no means even, Ruby and Blake are able to keep Roman on his toes by using their semblances. At some point in the fight, Ruby gets a decent hit in, which would have been a good thing if she didn't take a moment to gloat and tell Roman, "It's only a matter of time." Roman doesn't even let her finish, as he uses the opportunity to hit Ruby with one of those cane explosions, knocking her back. Roman doesn't waste any time and goes to attack Blake with all he has, having noticed that the cat girl was already tired from their bout before. As Ruby tries to get up, she can see Roman viciously attack Blake. She screams for him to stop, but it falls on deaf ears as, with a final powerful hit from Roman's cane, Blake goes down. Ruby lays on the ground, tears in her eyes. Roman looks at her and kicks the unconscious Blake closer to the fallen Rose, saying, "I don't know what they teach you at Beacon, kid, but let me give you a life lesson I wish I knew at your age. It's not you who suffers the most from these ridiculous heroics, it's the people around you. Now for your sake, I hope this is the last time we meet." At that, he walks away and we can resume canon, with only Blake being more hurt when Yang and Wise get there. Playing almost on her desire to be a hero and save everyone, Roman by doing this is basically spitting on her dreams. He's making it Ruby's fault that her friend got hurt. He is telling her it will always be her fault if she doesn't grow up. That to me is enough to make him an actual rival. Alright, that was Volume 1, and this is a good start to Ruby and Roman's rivalry. In Volume 2 and 3 I'm going to add even more to it and hope to give it a satisfying conclusion, but for now I'm going to take a quick break as this video really took it out of me. Seriously, writing stuff is a lot harder than it looks. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll try to get the part 2 that covers Volume 2 and 3 out as soon as I feel like it.